The FCC voted to repeal net neutrality today. This capped off a months-long campaign by that agency's Republican majority, 3-2 Democrats. This is insane. If the internet is not a public utility, then there's no public utility anywhere. But if it is a public utility, then it should not be controlled by three people, all of whom are Republicans, of course. This is another gift from Trump. In a dramatic moment, according to The Hill, a dramatic moment, the meeting was abruptly evacuated in the middle of Ajit Pai, the chairman, Ajit Pai's remarks right before the vote. Now, Ajit Pai comes from Verizon, and Verizon's been pushing this for years. They want this. They want a 2 or 3 track internet. Verizon. Can you hear me yet? Can you hear me now? Reporters and attendees were forced to exit the hearing room and leave their belongings. Cops brought in canine units to sweep the room. 15 minutes later, they were allowed back in. The FCC declined to comment on the reasons for the evacuation. Oh, gee, let me guess. Maybe it was a bomb threat? Christ. Comcast, which is owned by a right-wing devil, has been pushing for it too. Democrats, consumer groups, tech companies have been rallying for months to try to stop this plan, arguing that the rules are essential in preventing companies like Comcast and Verizon from abusing their power as internet gatekeepers. Jessica Rosenworcel, a Democrat on the commission who voted against the repeal, said, quote, as a result of today's misguided action, our broadband providers will get extraordinary new power from this agency. They will have the power to block websites, throttle services, censor online content. They will have the right to discriminate and favor the internet traffic of those companies with whom they have pay-for-play arrangements, and the right to consign all others to a slow and bumpy internet road. Now, Pai has been there since Obama. He was a minority commissioner under Obama. And he argued that the FCC, back in the day during the Obama years, overstepped its authority when it imposed the restrictions. The restrictions that simply said the internet's for everybody. Ooh, what an evil fucking restriction, isn't it, huh? Isn't that evil? During today's open meeting, Ajit Pai said this. Following today's vote, Americans will still be able to access the websites they want to visit. They will still be able to enjoy the services they want to enjoy. There will still be cops on the beat guarding a free and open internet. This is the way things were prior to 2015, and this is the way they will be once again. The lies and the deception that these Republican conservatives are so glib about, I mean, now, the old rules required internet service providers to treat all websites equally, banning them from blocking or throttling certain content or from creating internet so-called fast lanes. Under the new Republican Donald Trump rules, broadband companies will have to disclose publicly whether they engage in those practices. And as Pai argues, the industry will not have a free pass because the Federal Trade Commission will have the authority to sue providers that deceive their consumers or use their powers to abuse competition on the web. Okay, well then let me come up with one dumbass, unsophisticated question. Well then, why fix it if it ain't broke? If all of that's true, Why do what these bastards, these three Republican bastards, did today? Michael Beckerman, CEO of the Internet Association Trade Group, which represents tech giants like Google and Facebook and Amazon, said, quote, today's vote represents a departure from more than a decade of broad, bipartisan consensus on the rules governing the Internet. Relying on Internet service providers to live up to their own promises is not net neutrality and is bad for consumers, end quote. Now, lately, Ajit Pai, the chairman of the FCC, has argued that this was in defense of what he did today. He argued that Silicon Valley giants represent a bigger threat to the open internet, noting their opaque decision-making processes when it comes to moderating users' content. What? Representative Ro Khanna, a Democrat of California whose district includes much of Silicon Valley, said that's absurd. He, the representative, he called Ajit Pai's arguments disingenuous. He said, there's a total difference in terms of the essential necessity of having access to the internet versus having access to a particular platform. Facebook and Google aren't providing the gateway of access to the internet. That's a whole different thing. End quote. Now, not to worry, because I have a feeling, I know there are going to be lots of lawsuits filed against this. The first thing that's necessary, of course, is a injunction or a restraining order, whatever they call it now, until this thing plays out through the courts. And this is such a massive event, I can't think of the right word, that happened today. What the FCC has determined will affect 330 million people in this country, everybody who uses the internet. It will also affect people in different countries who use the internet, except for places like North Korea or, I don't know, totalitarian regimes who have some sort of intranet rather than an internet. But this will affect, ultimately, billions of people. And these three right-wing Trumpites made this decision today after all the input from the tech companies and the users and consumers. Don't do this. And once again, they said, fuck you, of course we're going to do it. Mainly we're going to do it because you're telling us not to do it. And eventually, I'm sure it'll get to the Supreme Court. Does that instill confidence in you that this bullshit will be declared what? What's unconstitutional about restricting access on the internet? I'm sure there must be something. Restricting fair trade or I don't even know. All I know, being the unsophisticated person that I am where it concerns internet usage, all I know is from listening to people much smarter than I, that this is the wrong thing to do, and it's being done to increase the profit of some of these ISPs, increase their profit, and it will have the net effect, no pun intended, of restricting political speech and blocking political speech from the left, not from the right, from the left.